Well, welcome Mainstream Leadership Network members. So excited to have you for this lesson today. We're going to be going into the balance of life, and I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to that today. But before we get started, as I always like to mention, if you hear one good thought, one good phrase, one good quote, or one good idea from this lesson today, I want to ask you to take absolute immediate action on this lesson. Remember, the difference between those who have great success and those who sit on Someday Island, and Someday Island is that place where people go with all their ideas packed in a metaphoric, treasure chest, and they don't take action. They're waiting for opportunity to come by and hit them in the face or drop in their lap, and opportunity won't do that. Opportunity is whizzing by us every day like cars in a fast lane. You got to make sure that you take action on the ideas that compel you. Hopefully there's some ideas in here that compel you to do things a little bit differently so you can have different results in your life. And that's the purpose of these lessons. That's the purpose of the Mainstream Leadership Network, is we want to help you guys have a better, more fulfilled, and impactful life. So make sure you take ideas on the things that compel you. Take action on the ideas that compel you today. All right. So there's a lot of talk about the balance of life. And the work-life balance specifically. And I know personally I've struggled with this, because being an entrepreneur and starting a couple businesses, I've had a struggle with putting the business, which is kind of like a baby, before my own family, where I have real babies. I have 4 kids, I have a beautiful wife, have an extended family who's very close. And so sometimes it's difficult to have balance in putting your family first, which we should, over your business, which essentially all your passion and desire gets channeled into, especially in the early years. So what I want to show you today is just kind of how balance works. And it isn't limited to just work and home life. It extends far beyond that. And there's 8 major areas that we have to talk about in this course that we need to have balance in. So now, before we get into talking about those major areas, one thing you do have to understand is this isn't going to be about time. So you're not going to put, for instance, 8 hours of work time in and then 8 hours of home life time in, or you're not going to put 4 hours of work life time in and then 8 hours of home life time in, and that's the fine balance. It's not that at all. What this is about finding enrichment and fulfillment in each area. So there may be one area of your life that's out of balance, and you might be putting 2 hours into that area, but you're out of balance because you're not tapping in to what I like to call the springs of life. And so we have to find those springs in your life that are going to fulfill you, and so that you can have great balance across the board. So let's talk about that. There was an ancient psalmist who said this. He said, "My cup runneth over. My cup runneth over." And that's a great metaphor. So I want to write a cup for you today and kind of show you a little analogy. I broke the chalk already. I'm too excited. So I broke it again. So here's a cup. Okay? Now if you look at this, it's just a representation of a cup. All of us are born as empty vessels. There's one author who said, "We are all empty vessels when we come into the world. And we leave, hopefully, as empty vessels," meaning we fulfilled our calling, we fulfilled our duty, and we dumped out everything we could onto the world. We didn't go to the grave with anything. But we come in as empty vessels. Now, when the psalmist said, "My cup runneth over," I kind of got this analogy for the balance of life on how you can constantly be a cup that runneth over. Okay? So, all of us, when we're born, we come in as empty vessels, and what happens? We have parents, guardians who nurture us and begin to pour into our cup. Okay, so somebody else has a cup that's full and they begin to dump water and, nourishment and hope and teaching into our lives. We may have multiple people who are doing this, okay? They're dumping things into our life. They're starting to fill us up. Then what happens? Water level starts to increase metaphorically. Water level increases. The more people you have dumping into your life, the more the water level increases. So after a certain period of time, you start getting into grade school and on up. What do these people expect? They're dumping into you, and anyone who's a parent understands you dump a lot into your kids when they're young. So what happens? Well, these people here, they expect you to be able to fill your own cup, right? So here's what they expect, and here's part of what they teach you as they're filling you up. They teach you how to tap in to your own wells. Okay? And these wells are the different areas of life that fulfill us. Okay? So one of those is relationships. Okay? So my kids, I have 4 kids, right? I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 5-month-old, at least the time of this recording. So they're going to get older, and one way that they find enrichment and fulfillment in their life that helps to pour in to their metaphoric cup of life, or their balance in their life, is their relationships with their brothers and sisters. Okay? So that is one area that we expect people to cultivate, to pour in water, or water of life, into their cup. Okay? Then you have the next one, which is their interests or hobbies, or in this case, I'll just say career. Okay, because even as a kid, you have a career as a school student. So being in school yourself, that if you didn't do well in school, you didn't feel very good about yourself, and so that didn't fill you up. But if you did well, what does it do? It fills up your cup, and your cup can be full. Okay? The next one is finances, right? Now, when you're younger, you don't worry about this as much, but if your parents don't have money, you are affected by it. If your dad is laid off or your mom's laid off and your family suffers and you're not able to buy the things that you want, or you're not able to get the things that you want for Christmas and for school and things like that, it bothers you. So there is an element of finances even when you're young, but it really takes root when you get older. So the next one is social life. So outside of your family, your relationships, socially, how are you affected by the things that are going on around you? How is your nation and what's going on in your nation affecting you? And if you don't know that, that can cause some problems in your life. The next one, health. Your physical health really affects you, right? So if you're always sick, or if you're not in good shape, or you don't feel like your body is in the shape that you'd like it to, or if you're not eating good food, you're eating poor quality food, that affects you, right? But if you're eating good and you're doing things right, it affects you in a positive way, which brings more water into your cup, okay? So when you have fulfillment here, those things begin to raise your water levels, okay? Now, there's a couple more, and then I'll go into a little bit about how this works. So the next one after that is lifestyle. So those are things like your hobbies, your interests. I love basketball. I'm a big basketball player. I love sports. I love watching football. I get up to go out with my friends and watch games, watch football games, go to sports events. That really brings fulfillment into my life. I also like to work out. I play guitar. I like to play guitar and sing. That brings fulfillment into my life and my lifestyle. So your lifestyle is very important. Also, how you dress. I've been looking for my style for a long time. What I realized is I like to be professional and casual at the same time. So I wear outfits like this because it's part of my style. It's part of who I am. It's part of how I express myself. Business in the front, party in the back sort of thing. So you do have to find your own personal style, and that's lifestyle and your hobbies, and you have to pour in to those things. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 2 more. Next one is your mental state, which is very important. That the things you think, what you pour into your mind is going to be very important. What you think is how you feel, is what you do. So how you think, your mentality about life is very important. Your philosophy about life is very, very important. And if you have a poor mentality, meaning every time something goes wrong, oh, here we go again. Or, something's not going your way at work. Oh, here we go again. That will affect the balance in your life. But if you have a good mentality and you have a positive mentality, that fills your cup up. And you can raise up to another level. And then the last one, which fills you up, and none of these are more important than the other, by the way. They all work together. The last one, though, is spirituality. So there is a spirit realm. Whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you really care about it or not, there's definitely a spiritual realm. And if you close your eyes and you imagine something, and you say, you know what, if I could imagine myself in a certain way, 5 years down the road, what would I imagine myself as? And you see yourself, in a certain place, in a certain state. Spiritually, that is an activity that is beginning to go on. There's also spiritual forces in the world that are unseen, that things that we can't explain, that supernaturally help us get to where we want to go or take us further away from where we want to go. So it is very important to be aware spiritually. So these 8 areas of life are the major areas of life that cause us to be in balance or out of balance. And it is so vital that we're in balance. Now, here's the rub. With each of these, what I like to call springs of life, there's also drains. So this is a drain. It drains out your water. Okay? And some of them can have multiple drains. Now, anybody who's been in a career where you've got a bad boss or you have a poor work environment, you understand how much of a drain that can be to your overall state of life, okay? This cup represents you and your entirety and holistically who you are and how you approach life and how you feel about your life. And there are times just by things that happen in your career that drain you out. Sometimes there's multiple drains and they drain you out quickly, right? And so that takes your water level down. And all of us have had this feeling where you're just feeling down. You're just down in the dumps. And what most people don't realize is there is something in their life that is just draining them out that they don't know how to handle. And we're going to talk about that. So mentality, you can have a mental drain. Sometimes you're just mentally tired and you need rest because you've been thinking too dang much and you need to rest. Financially, we know how much financial drain there is in the world, right? It's inflation. Things keep costing more money, can drain you out. You've got social drains, right? There's elections that happen. There's things happening in politics that affect us socially and holistically in our environment. Next, there's physical health. Sometimes we get sick. We don't feel good. The weather's bad, so forth and so on. Spiritually, there's forces at work that we sometimes aren't aware of. In our lifestyle, sometimes, most people don't take time for themselves. They'll service their cars or their vehicles or their houses more than they take care of themselves and look at, enriching their own life. And so that causes a drain. Now, I'm just going to give you the reality. Most people in life are living at about 25% water level. Okay, so I'll just take this and I'll say 100%. I'll say 75. I'll say 50. And I'll say 25. And then this is 0, which, when you get into anxiety and depression and things like that, most people are living at a 0. But I would say on average, most people are living at about 25%. So what does that mean? That means there's probably maybe 1 or 2 areas that they're really tapping into their springs of life and getting fulfillment in the rest of their life. Most of the rest of their life is a drain to them. And so what happens is they're constantly pouring in through one thing and pouring in, and they aren't people that have enough to give to the world. Once you get over 50% and you get to 100%, you can be like one of these guys that pour into others and that give life to others. But most people aren't at a level where they can properly pour into other people's lives because they don't have enough to spare. And so people become selfish, they become stingy, they become depressed, anxious, so forth and so on. Here's the biggest problem of it all. And this is the whole point of the Balance of Life class, is that we don't focus on the drains, which most people do. Most people think about, how do I stop the drain from happening. I'm going to stop the drain. So if it's a relationship thing and socially, well, I'll just cut that relationship off and everything will be better. Well, no, it won't be, because there's going to be other drains in that area. So if you focus on the drain, what happens with all these other drains? They keep draining, right? But here's how you overcome a drain. Any one of you who's ever poured water into a cup from a faucet, for instance, that has maybe a couple drains at the bottom, I would recommend you do this. Take a plastic cup, plug some holes into it, okay, with a needle, just plug some holes into it. And then what I want you to do is turn on the faucet as high as it can go. Here's what ends up happening. No matter how much those drains drain out, that water will go into that cup and fill up to the top and be running over. So what I want to tell you today is, in this class, and what you need to do if you are going to have balance in life, if you are going to be a cup that runneth over, and you've been one of those people before in your life where you've had times where your cup has been running over and you feel so enriched and so fulfilled, and it doesn't matter what you do or where you go, you're pouring into other people, you're making other people feel good about you. You've also been around people like that who walk into a room and they change the atmosphere. And you go, what in the world is going on? Well, those are people whose cups are running over and they have so much to spare that they're like bubbling brooks and pouring into everybody's life. Here's what you got to do. You have got to, instead of focusing on drains, which most people end up focusing on the drains, and the reason they do that is because the mind is built for survival. And so whenever we have a drain, we start to give in to fear, doubt, and worry. And we start to, oh, how do I stop this from happening? Instead of pouring into the things that bring you life and constantly working on your conduit towards your springs of life and not focusing on the drains. But there are times you do have to focus on the drains, but you don't have to do it the majority of the time. I promise you that. Is you focus on what brings you life, and you simply focus on metaphorically pumping the well of the springs of your life. That's all you're going to focus on. Yes, there are drains. Are there going to be drains financially in your life? You better darn well believe it. And one thing I talk about in the financial portion, it's just a real quick aside, is here's the way you get out of debt quicker than anything else. I'm big into budgeting, by the way. I think budgeting's big. I think having goals financially is big. But I'm going to tell you the quickest way to get out of debt. You make more money. One way you help yourself financially is you figure out ways to make more money. In your relationships and family, instead of focusing on the people you don't like to be around, spend more time with the people in your family who you love to be around. Spend more time focusing on the things that you love. In your career, if you are in a job or a place that is draining, and figure out a way to change the environment, which will give you the tools to do that. Figure out a way to change the environment, or find another job. There are plenty of places who need a person just like you, and if you're willing to take the risk, you can find a career that suits you and is great for you, or start your own business. I had a guy tell me early on in my career, he said, if you can do it better, go do it better. And that's what I did. I felt like at my job, I could do it better than they were doing it, so I started my own business. Okay, physical health. There are certain steps you can have. Don't focus on how good food is and how the bad food is good. Don't focus on that. Focus on what you really want. So, a long story short, is if you are going to be the cup that runneth over, which I want for all of you, I want each and every one of you to be that cup that runs over and is the type of person that walks in a room and changes the environment. We have to change our mindset. We have to change our spirit. We have to change our social views. We have to improve in our relationships and family. We have to improve in the way we look at our career by simply focusing on what fills us up in each one of those areas. And as we go through these lessons, just remember, we are not focusing on the drains, and we're not trying to plug drains through this class. What we're trying to do is we're trying to focus on the areas that bring you the most life. So you can be a person that is always at the 75% level and beyond. Because there's going to be times where the drains are hitting you a little bit harder than others, but that doesn't mean you have to drain your cup out. What we want you to be is that cup that is constantly and consistently running over, so you can be the type of person that helps others live fulfilled and impactful lives. So if you're ready, let's move on to the next lesson, and let's get started with the balance of life.